You are listening to Rabbi Aryeh Wolbe of Torch in Houston, Texas. This is the Living Jewishly podcast.
Okay, my dear friends, welcome back. Welcome back to the Everyday Judaism podcast. It is so wonderful to be here. We are about to begin chapter Siman 115, where we talk about the laws of Erev Pesach, the day before Pesach that falls on Shabbos. So we had a little bit introduction here prior to going live about some of the details that are involved in the calendar for this year, so we understand why this year is a little bit different, that Pesach is going to begin Saturday night. That means that Erev Pesach is going to be on Shabbos. Okay. We also mentioned that there are 6 things that need to happen right before Pesach. Number 1 is the cleaning. Number 2 is the searching, which this year is going to be on Thursday night. We have to burn the Chametz. We have to get rid of the Chametz. We have to, what it means nullifying it. We have to sell it. And the firstborn fasts. So when does all of that happen? And as we will see in this Siman, it's not a very long Siman, we're going to go through some of the details, all the details that are applicable to this. For example, we can't sell on Shabbat. So the selling of the Chametz needs to happen before Shabbat. What does it mean when we talk about selling? We spoke about this last year in our Everyday Judaism podcast. Selling means you actually sell your Chametz. Okay, what does that mean? If this is Chametz, if this is not kosher for Passover, I want to keep it in my house, it's valuable. I'll give you an example of something which is valuable, your alcohol. All right, so if you have a good bottle of scotch or bourbon or vodka, some of these can be very expensive, or tequila. So what do you? I don't want to sell it. I don't want to get rid of it. I don't want to burn it or spill it out. I prefer having it for after Pesach because it's very valuable, very expensive, very unique, whatever it may be. So in such a circumstance where there is a significant loss, you can sell it. Now, what does it mean to sell it? That means you find a non-Jew, you tell him, listen, I want you to buy my chametz. You're welcome to come into my house and take it and eat it. But I'm selling it to you. Right? Now, after Pesach, when I'm allowed to eat it again, I would love to buy it back if you'd be so kind and sell it to me. And you have to find someone who's trustworthy, who's not going to say, no, I'm not going to sell it back to you after Pesach, because they have the right to do that. They have the right to not sell it back. Okay, so now what happens with the chametz? It's an actual transaction. I will have, God willing, this week I'll already have papers here. Anybody who wants to sell their chametz, and you'll see on that form, it'll say the property address. If there's any restriction to access, what's the remedy? So if there's a code to get in, you have to let them know exactly which room this chametz is in. So for example, one of the things that we sell for Pesach is our bar, which has a lot of alcohol that's not kosher for Passover. And we close it off. And we have a sign on it, sold. Okay, and it's literally sold. And if someone comes on Pesach and knocks on the door and says, hey, I just figured I'll come by for a shot of whiskey, it's theirs. It belongs to them. Can't stop them. Can't say, no. They have access to our keypad, and they can unlock the door and come right in and enjoy their whiskey that they bought at a very discounted price. Okay, so they purchase, and that's, by the way, for the entire neighborhood, sells it to a non-Jew to enjoy over Pesach. Now, typically, it's not the items that they necessarily would want, so they're not going to, possibly they're not going to go and eat the pretzels that are in the pantry, right? Maybe they will, but that's theirs, their choice. It's totally theirs. It should be designated. It should be assigned, meaning clearly known. This is sold. It's sold. It does not belong to us. Now, that sale needs to happen before Shabbos. right? There's a time. Why? Why does it need to happen before Shabbos? Because you can't make a transaction like that on Shabbos. Okay, a transaction like that cannot happen on Shabbos. You had a question. There are plenty of certified kosher for Passover alcohols, tequilas, and vodkas. Not all vodkas are made out of potato. There are some that are, but even those that say that they are, how do you know that a drop of flour didn't fall in there? You have no idea. That's why you need to be certain that this is kosher Pesach, kosher for Passover, right? So yes, that's why you'll find a lot of products now. If you go to HEB, Randall's, they have rows and rows of kosher for Passover. I think it's very special that they take such good care of our Jewish community, our kosher shoppers, to ensure. I was there already a week and a half ago to buy some of the things that are needed. I'm sure I'll be there plenty more times before Passover to ensure that we have what we need. Now, you can't just buy regular product and say, well, it's the same as kosher for Passover, so I'll just get it. No, you got to make sure that it is. I'll give you, though, an example of things that are kosher for Passover all year round. Olive oil. Olive oil from Costco. You look at it the entire year, it'll have an OUP for Passover. Right? The whole year, year round. Why? Because there's no reason for it not to be. Unless the guy is munching on his sandwich in the oil factory, right? Which shouldn't really happen. Unless that is the case, it should be kosher for Passover. So they'll ensure that they don't bring it into the premises of the production line. Right? That's important. Okay. What is chametz? We already discussed wheat, barley, spelt, rye, and oats that are mixed with water and ferment. So matzah is flour and water. It's only flour and water, and it is from the time the water touches it to the minute it is out of the oven. It's much less than 18 minutes, by the way. But what they do is like this. Let me explain. If you haven't been to a matzah bakery, factory, it is quite an experience. I would recommend you go see it. If you can see it online, it's exceptional. But basically what happens is they are ready to, they'll have all of this flour, which is clean flour. It's never been touched by water. And it's been watched from the moment it's been harvested, or it's been cut. Okay? From the moment it's been cut, it's been watched, secured, locked to ensure that no drop of water touches it. Because the minute the water touches it, 18 minutes later, that thing is chametz. Okay? So they make sure that all of that grain, all of that flour, no water touches it. Now, they'll take all of that flour, and as soon as the water touches it, the clock begins. And it's a big clock they have in that room, and everyone gets their flour and everyone gets their water, and they start mixing it. Everybody gets, and they can do it with a machine, by the way. It doesn't have to be done by hand. Do it with a machine, and then everybody gets their piece of dough that's going to become their matzah. And they knead out that matzah. They knead it out. They put it onto a stick. That stick is just like a pole, basically, and they wrap it around it, and they lay it into a flat oven. It goes into that oven, and it's out. It's seconds because the oven is so hot. As soon as it's out, they put it onto a cooling pan, and it keeps on going. That cycle keeps on going till 18 minutes. As soon as 18 minutes is up, whatever flour is on that table is now chametz. They clean it off. You understand? The system is very, very meticulous. And then a next cycle comes in, 18 minutes, and it keeps on going like that. And they've been doing this, by the way, since Hanukkah. There have been shifts going on in the matzah factories all day, every day. And now it's even from Purim. They go crazy because they have to produce matzah for an enormous community of matzah lovers. So you have it's a big process. It's a very simple process, but again, once that water touches the flour, you have 18 minutes, and then it's got to be out of that oven. Right? So you can make matzah in your own home as well if you'd like. Have a good time. Enjoy. But don't put it in the same one you make your grilled cheese sandwich in, that oven, okay? Because that would... Okay. All right, you get it. Okay. Okay. So we are beginning Siman 115. Erev Pesach Shchalios b'Shabbos. I'm sorry I don't have the handouts. And for those of you online, hopefully I'll get those handouts to you sometime soon. Erev Pesach Shchalios b'Shabbos. When Erev Pesach falls on Shabbos, Bodkin es Chametz Bilel Yud Gimel, we search for Chametz on the night of the 13th. What's the night of the 13th? The night of the 13th, like we mentioned previously, would be on Thursday night. On Thursday night. That is the night that relates to Friday, Thursday night. After the search, he should nullify the chametz, and that's staged. So there's two nullifications. We do a nullification after searching, and we do a nullification after burning. Okay? Nullification. Ve'omer kol chamira, and he says the declaration of kol chamira, all sourdough, etc. Kimo b'pam acher, as he would any other time when Erev Pesach does not fall on Shabbos. Ubiyom vav sorfo, and on Friday before Shabbos he burns the chametz. Gam kein bisman shu sorfo b'chol Erev Pesach. It's at the same time, like we said, this year is going to be at 11:16 a.m. Oh, 1 second. Can you pass me the calendar? In Houston, Texas, that time will be on Friday at 12:07 p.m. 12:07 p.m. You have to have it burned, and again nullified. Also, at the same time that he burns it on Erev Pesach, aval eino tzarich lomar kol chamira. However, unlike every year, he does not need to recite kol chamira declaration after burning the chametz to nullify all remaining chametz. Ela b'Shabbos la'achar achila, till Shabbos after eating his last chametz meal. That's when you get rid of it, because again, we typically would do it at 12:07 on this year's time schedule, right before Pesach. But right before Pesach is not on Friday. It's actually on Shabbos. So you nullify it on Shabbos. Mivatlo v'omer, and he says, and then so on Shabbos after eating his meal, his chametz meal, because again, you can't have kosher for Passover yet. I mean, you can have kosher for Passover items, like dishes can all be, meaning the dishes that you eat don't have to be chametz per se, but you do have to, you can't make hamotzi on matzah. You have to make hamotzi, the bread has to be actual bread. So that has to be done earlier. He nullifies all chametz by saying kol chamira. Okay, halacha number 2. Habechorim misanim b'yom hey. When do the firstborn fast? On Thursday. V'im kashalo lihisanos ad la'achar b'dikas chametz. And if it is difficult for one to fast until after the chametz is searched for, yachol litom eze davar muat kodem abdika. He is allowed to eat something small after nightfall, but before b'dikas chametz, because the halacha says, if you remember last year when we learned the laws of searching for chametz, you're not allowed to eat till after you search for chametz. So this applies to all of us as well, but particularly for a firstborn who's fasting, that we don't eat prior to searching for chametz, because what's going to happen, what's inevitable, is that once we start eating, then we start getting carried away, we're schmoozing with our family, we're having a good time, we forget about searching for chametz. Food has a way of carrying us away, or we get tired, I'm just going to take a little nap. We wake up the next morning, I overslept, I forgot to search for chametz. Okay, so these are things that are important for us to remember. Always do the mitzvah before you eat. So someone who's fasting can taste something before doing the search for chametz, something small. O yasa shliach livdok, or he can make a messenger, he can appoint an agent to perform the bedika for him instead. Halacha 3. Ein mevashlan l'Shabbos zeh tavshile kmachim ugrisin. One should not cook for this Shabbos cooked dishes containing flour or grits. Shiachon lehizdabek bekderos, for these foods can stick to the pot. Ve'osur lahadichon, and it is forbidden to wash them on Shabbos. Al kain, therefore, yevashel rak ma'acholim she'enam izdabkim. You should eat foods, you should cook foods that do not adhere to the pots and pans, to the utensils. Ve'achar achila, and after eating, minar heitev v'samapa, he should shake off the tablecloth really well. Umatzniya osam im kol klei hachametz, and he should put it away with the rest of his chametz utensils that are going to be sold to the non-Jew. V'cheder she'eino ragol leches shama bepesach, and it should be a room that you're not accustomed to entering on Pesach. You have a special designated room. This is my chametz room, and this is sold. The whole room is sold to the non-Jew. V'im nishaloma at pas, and if after the meal he has a little bit of bread left over, yitnen al akum, you should either give it to an idolater, to a non-Jew, or he can get rid of it in other ways. We mentioned a few earlier. The garbages that we have belong to the city of Houston, and therefore putting things into that garbage is considered that it's not your possession anymore. That's one. Another option is some people will flush it down the toilet. And again, it's not. I don't think it's respectful to bread to destroy it in such a way. But or you can give it to the birds, or you can give it to the squirrels. But don't forget that comes with a danger, right? As I mentioned before we went live, my neighbor one year did this same calendar setup, put out all of their extra bagels out, for the in the garbage, and the squirrels got to it, and we woke up the morning after Pesach, first morning of Pesach, and there were bagels on all the trees and all the branches all around the neighborhood. So yeah, that was very interesting. Rakizar bi isur hotzar, a person should be careful regarding the prohibition of hotzar, which is transferring from one domain to another. And one should make sure the house is cleaned up and swept, and everything is ready for Pesach. Either with a person should either have someone, a housekeeper, come who's not Jewish, who cleans up really well, or use a permitted object to clean. Now, finding a broom, making sure that, because here's just like to put in the sensitivity in our mind of what's going on. So what happens if you use you use a broom for sweeping the little crumbs that are on the floor? What's going to happen now? You can use that same broom for Pesach. You're going to have your little crumbs that had bread in it cleaning your Pesach floor, which is why we have a special Pesach broom, right? Which doesn't have all of the crumbs. So understand, there's different sensitivity to the chametz. Even one morsel of chametz is not allowed to be in your house. Chametz, again, is wheat, barley, spelt, rye, oats that are mixed with water and fermented for a period of time of over 18 minutes to bring it to its full. Okay, so now, on Shabbos, there is a mitzvah to eat 3 meals, 1 at night and 2 during the day. The final meal of the 3 meals of Shabbos should, if at all possible, include bread like the other meals of Shabbos. So how do we do that on the Shabbos right before Pesach? So we go as follows. Because what's the problem this year? This year, if we look at our magnificent torch calendar, we have to be done with eating chametz at 11:14 a.m. in Houston, 2025. Right, the calendar year of 2025. Pesach begins on the 12th of April at candlelighting is 8:38 p.m. That's when candlelighting is, because that has to come in after Shabbos ends. Got it? Shabbos ends only at 8:38, so you don't light the candles for Pesach till after Shabbos is out. But we finish eating our chametz by 11:14 a.m. Is anybody confused here? A little bit? No, you good? Okay, good. because I'm almost confusing myself. So now, Baboker mispalim hashkama. So what's the proper thing to do? We daven early Shabbos morning, so that shelo la'acher hazman, so that we should not be late. We shouldn't miss the time of eating the chametz. Shemutar b'achilas chametz. And it is proper to divide your meal into two. That means that you recite the grace after meals after eating part of the meal. And take a little break, take a walk with your family. And then either by walking, by playing games with the kids, by studying Torah, take a break. And then you go back and wash your hands again, and then continue eating your meal, and recite the grace after meals a second time. Because now it's two separate meals, even though it's really one meal, but like this you fulfill the special mitzvah of having 3 meals on Shabbos. In order to fulfill this great mitzvah of the third meal as well. No, again, what do we read? The Haftorah that we read. What is it that we read? So we read V'orvola Hashem, which is actually my bar mitzvah parsha, my bar mitzvah Haftorah, which is Shabbos Hagadol. Shabbos Hagadol is going to be that Shabbos. We talked about it previously in previous years. We're going to repeat those episodes on our podcast so that our listeners on the Jewish Inspiration Podcast can listen and understand what Shabbos Hagadol is about. It's called the Great Shabbos. Lefisha Kosov Sham, because it says in those words of the prophet in Malachi, it says, Haviu es kol ha'maaser al beis ha'otzar, right? Bring all the tithes into the storage house, into the room of the Beis HaMikdash, of the Holy Temple, where the tithes were stored. V'hu mi'inyana, and this is pertinent to this day, to the day preceding Pesach. Ilfi yesh omrim, because according to some opinions, hayuzman habiur be'erev Pesach shel shana revius b'shmita. The time of disposal of the tithes was on Erev Pesach, on the 4th year of the Shemitah cycle. Ube'erev Pesach shel shana shvius b'shmita, and on Erev Pesach of the 7th year of the Shemitah, shekol ha'masros shehifrish kol gimel shana mitvuaso v'hayu munachim bebeso mechuyavim oz litnon al Levi. That is, all the tithes that one separated for all of the previous 3 years from his produce, they all were still in his house. And he is still obligated at that time to give them to the Levi, so he would bring them to the temple and they'd be stored away. So this is referring to all of the grains that were in our home. Get rid of them. Donate them. Okay, so now that's referring also to our chametz, that we get rid of our chametz. This is the last halacha here in this Siman, is halacha number 6. When kneading a certain measure of dough, one must set aside and burn a portion of the dough, known as challah. Right? Challah is the part that we separate from the dough. If this portion was not set aside before baking, it must be removed afterward. When one bakes loaves for Shabbos, the challah is separated before Shabbos, as challah may not be separated on Shabbos. In this seif, we talk about the importance of ensuring that challah is separated from the Shabbos loaves before this Shabbos, particularly this Shabbos of Pesach, which falls out at the end of Shabbos on Saturday night, and discusses what should be done if one forgot to do so. Okay, so Erev Shabbos. On this Erev Shabbos, we're referring to what's going to be in 3 weeks' time. Right? In 3 weeks, we're going to be beginning Pesach Saturday night. So Erev Shabbos, what do we do? Each person, meaning the head of each household, must take extreme care to ask the members of his household whether they set aside the challah. Lishol nimifrishu challah. Min achalos she'afu l'chod Shabbos. From the loaves that they baked in honor of Shabbos. Ki im lo ifrishu challah, if they did not set aside challah before Shabbos, v'nizkru b'Shabbos, and they realized on Shabbos that they did not set it aside, yesh b'zeh mevucha gdola malasos. There's a big dilemma regarding what to do. because you can't separate challah on Shabbos. Ki asur lahafrish challah b'Shabbos, because it is forbidden to set aside challah on Shabbos. V'gam asur lahashosan, it is also forbidden to keep the loaves until after the Shabbos, since it's Chametz, right? It's leavened. V'das HaMagen Avram, the opinion of the Magen Avram in such a case, shetzorach liten kol hachalos la'akum. Here's the problem: is you can't eat from bread that wasn't separated challah. See, one of the things that we have to understand, which is why kosher bread means that the challah was taken from it. Well, what's it different than any other bread? Well, the other bread, challah wasn't separated. When you have a kosher bread, what it means is that we took off a tithe, so to speak, from that dough, from that batch. Okay, so what do? You can't eat it because challah wasn't separated. So you therefore must give all of the loaves to an idolater. The matana gemura, in a full, legally binding present. You give them a gift, it's theirs. Kodem shoshen ne'asarim ba'ana, before the time that they are forbidden for benefit. V'yesh cholkim, however, there are authorities who disagree with this opinion because of takonos acheros, that have given other solutions to rectifying this problem. V'kulon ruchokos, and all of them are halachically difficult to grasp. V'alkein tzrichin lizar badavar, he says, therefore, just do me a favor, figure it out before Shabbos and make sure that you take the challah before Shabbos. And if you forgot to do it in the process of baking, you can take it after the baking. You have loaves of bread, cut off a piece, a sizable amount of one of the loaves, and you say, Harezo challah, this is my separation of challah. And by the way, that's why it's called challah bread. Many people call it challah bread. It's called challah because of the mitzvah of challah that we separate from it. The bread is not called challah. The bread is not called challah. The part that you take away and you give to God is challah. And that's why we call the bread challah, because it's a mitzvah that we do with this bread. It gets the name of the mitzvah that we call it by the name of the mitzvah that we do with it. Very cool. It's amazing. All right, so that concludes Siman 115. And hopefully I will be able to get you these notes shortly. But to those of you listening on the podcast, we are going to enter the segment of the Ask Away number 7. Number 7 already? And I'm really excited about this. So my dear friends who are here in the beautiful Torch Center in Houston, Texas, please roll out your questions.
You've been listening to Rabbi Aryeh Wolbe on a podcast produced by Torch, the Torah Outreach Resource Center of Houston. Please help sponsor an episode so we can continue to produce more quality Jewish content for our listeners around the globe. Please visit torchweb.org to donate and partner with us on this incredible endeavor.